Or do you want me to? Welcome back. It's Beyond the Box Score. I'm Dan Schneider. That's Jacob Gibbs. And today we are joined by a special guest. I am very excited about today's show. These are like my favorite shows to do. And we explore them to some extent on Beyond the Box Score. We get to do it more in the off season. So like some of the most valuable times come from this off season roar. And today we have a special guest on, Max Toscano. I hope that I pronounced that right. I'm known for mispronouncing names left and right, but he is a Paisan, so I feel like I can get that right as being a fellow Northern New Jersey person. I just assume that, by the way. I don't know if that's true for sure. I mean, you see the O at the end of the name and you guess things. But Max is probably the premier, at least in my mind, tight end evaluator in the fantasy football game, in the NFL game at this point, as far as what I have covered and what I've seen. I'm really excited about today's show. We're going to talk a lot about his thoughts on tape of the tight ends, where the tight end position is headed. We'll do 30,000 foot view stuff and individual player stuff. He will make me feel terrible about the Giants signing Isaiah Likely, and I'm going to have to deal with that and accept it. But how is everybody doing today? Jacob, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Yeah, we got a real life football fan here, not just the Dynasty deep dive sicko here. This show has been bringing a lot of advanced stats and stuff, so I'm excited to actually get in and talk some real football, kind of delineate between, some of these guys who run a lot of routes and get yards and stuff, but like, can we expect them to stay around as long-term pros for a long time, or are coaches going to get sick of them not being able to help their run game and stuff? So yeah, Max is a friend of the program here. He came on last year, brought his whiteboard. We talked through all the X's and O's of the Seattle offense, what was happening with Jackson Smith and Jigba and everything. That was really fun to obviously see them go on and have the Super Bowl run. So I think we've got another really good show for y'all here. We're going to talk about what's been changing around the league. So specifically, I'm focused on Sean McVay and what he showed us last year. I thought was really, really interesting. McVay continues to find ways to reinvent this Rams offense, right? Like we keep seeing it, whether it's the run game, the pass game. He's kind of always ahead of the curve a little bit. And last year, what we saw was that he used 3 tight ends on the field 388 times, 388 offensive plays, dating back to 2000. Only one other team out of all those teams has used 3 tight ends on the field more than 200 times. So he almost doubled that last year, which is just really a weird and unprecedented way to run an offense. And it got some buzz during the season. But I really want to just dig into this and the ramifications, because it wasn't just McVay using more tight ends. There was one, I'm really excited to get to this. We have one other like ascending offensive mind that kind of adapted. Maybe it's copycat league, whatever you want to call it. Started using way more 3 tight end sets, like towards the end of the year and into the playoffs. So I'm really, really, really excited to get into all this with Max. Max is totally focused on the tight end position. Yeah, you've started, or maybe you've been doing this for a while. Dan mentioned on the channel, I didn't even know this. You're doing tight ends on reception perception with Matt Harmon. So I'm really excited to hear about that, because I don't know anything about that yet. And then he has his own Substack as well, which is really good reading. So Max, thank you back. I hope you do have your whiteboard, and let the people know where they can find you on Twitter, what you're working on. Definitely talk to us about reception perception and how that's all going.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whiteboard today is digital. It's there. Don't worry about it. But this one you can actually see. So instead of having just the novelty of the whiteboard gag, you can actually learn something from it and read. But yeah, no, I started doing tight ends for reception perception. We really finished everything from a nuts and bolts perspective and organization and all that when I got to the combine. So really, really recently. And it's been kind of full steam ahead since with the draft guys and the charting we're doing there. We're doing something that I think hasn't been even close to done. At least on an external level for fans, because internally teams will do this stuff all the time. I mean, they know who's playing what position, they know everything about alignment, they know all the nuances they're in because they're football teams. This is their job, but that hasn't made it to the public at all, at least for the tight end position. And so now that all of these nuances and lines of demarcation and usage patterns are becoming delineated, we kind of need the public understanding to catch up, and that just hasn't been available. So we're charting things in a totally new way. We're keeping obviously the reception perception model that has been so successful for mapping out pass catchers and understanding what they do, because there's no reason to change that. But we're adding some specific tight end stuff as well that you'll be able to get to see pretty soon. So yeah, that's what I'm doing there. The Substack, remember the tight ends, is continuing to roll. Have some draft stuff coming up there. But yeah, it's just, the really full steam ahead with reception perception, just in anticipation of the draft right now, because we're under the gun. It's crazy how fast this offseason is going.
It always picks up steam around this time, right after that first wave of free agency. I feel like Jacob and I are going to be also diving more into rookies in these next few weeks. I'm so excited for that. But I'm curious to get your takes. I mean, we don't have to jump right into it. Jacob has a whole show plan that we're going to follow, but I'm very curious once we get to your takes on these rookies, because I've heard, and I haven't studied it in depth yet, but I've heard this class has really good depth at tight end, and players that could be really interesting, like late round dynasty rookie draft targets. And that's always what I'm kind of looking for, finding those tight ends in that round 3-4 range. So I'm excited to get there.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the rookies. We're going to talk about the 2025 class, which had lots of awesome tight ends. And yeah, just again, I'm going to plug this. Remember the tight ends.substack.com. Go check out Max's work.
Unbelievable alliteration. Just alliteration's not the right word. Whatever that is, great job.
I didn't come up with it. I didn't come up with it. The idea was gifted to me by
nobody would have known, Max. Nobody.
No, I've had this conversation before. It's in writing on Twitter, so that would kill the whole thing. It's you got to be on it. And if he wants royalties eventually, then we'll have to negotiate that. But I did not come up with it.
Fair enough.
All right, so I didn't bring a lot of data today because we want to hear from Max for sure. We even put film review, on the thumbnail, which is getting off the beaten path a little bit for Beyond the Box Score. But the data that I do have is the 2 tight end rate has risen year over year for 3 straight years now, and it was the highest that it's been since 2011. 33% of offensive plays had at least 2 tight ends on the field last year. One offense I wanted to highlight that I thought was so crazy as I looked into this historic data was that the Patriots in 2011 had a 75% rate back in the Gronk and Hernandez days, and it was absurdly efficient. Obviously, there were a lot of things contributing to that efficiency, but 0.19 EPA per play on those plays with 2 or more tight ends on the field, which would have been the highest mark in the league last year. And then back to the Rams. If you look at the Rams, when they had 3 tight ends on the field last year, they averaged 0.2 EPA, expected points added, per play on those 3 tight end plays, which is actually higher than that historic Patriots number, which is crazy. 58% success rate on those plays with 3 or more tight ends on the field. So generally speaking, league-wide, having 3 tight ends on the field doesn't equate to more efficient offense from the data that I found. But it definitely was working for McVay and the Rams. I think it puts defenses in a bind in terms of how they're going to approach defending it, what type of personnel they're going to use. And so I want to throw that to Max and just see any thoughts he has on the Rams, on getting more tight ends on the field. And then we are going to talk about the team that I teased earlier that started kind of copying McVay.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the direct opposite of what Sean McVay kind of became famous for, right? Like, he was the first guy to truly go full exclusive 11 personnel and do everything from that instead of just being a team that throws the ball all the time, right? Like, he turned the fullback position that he inherited from Shanahan, which is, obviously his background. Those guys have always used a fullback at least a significant amount. And so he turned that role into the power slot. And so he's used guys like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp in that exact same move blocking role, where they'll lead to the support defender, insert on a linebacker, dig out the nickel, climb to a safety, that move blocking, secondary blocking role. That's really what it is. And he turned that into a third receiver so that they can max out on pass catching at all times, and be able to keep that run game identity, keep that foundation, while also being able to honor where the game is going and punish defenses for being so committed to heavy boxes. Because for generations, football has been a run first sport. And defensive coordinators forever have operated under the ethos of defending the run first, and from there you're allowed to do other things. And so what the spread guys did, and pretty much everybody in the league, they just started throwing the ball all over the yard in the 2010s, especially with the Seattle cover 3 system becoming so popular and so rigid, where they realized that no matter what they did, teams are going to quote unquote defend the run. So you could put 3 receivers and a flex tight end at the tight end spot out there, and you're not going to pay any Nash equilibrium price for it. And McVay did that while also running the ball, because you can only go so far away from the Shanahan roots, right? And he had Jared Goff, so you couldn't really just put the whole thing on his shoulders. And so where we're at now is a total inversion of this idea, where defenses are now defending pass first because it's more efficient and it's more harmful. And they've realized that, and they realize that offenses are doing that first now. And if they stop the pass or at least commit resources to the pass and try to do enough versus the run, it's far better than the inverse. So they've done that. And that's where the league is at. And so all of a sudden, depending on what you do, what personnel you have out there, you're going to get different responses from defenses. So what McVay has done is he's gone as extreme as possible in the other direction so that he can get those things back. He can get those advantages back. He can get defenses back into a run-first approach, because if you have 3 tight ends on the field, that's 3 guys you can put in the formation, at least in theory, create huge surfaces, goal line type formations that defenses have to honor. And so it's much harder to play nickel and 2 high all the time when they're doing that. So teams, when they decide what personnel is on the field defensively, are going to match based on who you have out there. And so they see the 2 and 3 tight ends, and they'll say, well, we play base to that. We play base defense to that. And what these teams are doing, and what the Rams are doing in that extreme way, is punishing that by throwing out of it. It's really not to run the ball. It's to throw it, knowing that if you do anything about the pass with that much force committed in the other direction, they can make you pay for it. And the Rams can make you pay for it because their offensive line is incredibly physical. They have at least 2 tight ends on the field at all times who can block at a high level in line, with Davis Allen, Colby Parkinson, Tyler Higbee to an extent, whatever combination of 2 are out there. And then you have Ferguson, who can stretch the field enough as that pseudo second receiver that you can kind of at least throw into defenses that are playing you like it's goal line. And that's why it was so efficient, is because they were able to chunk defenses that were defending the run, and they were able to do enough from a play calling perspective and space the field enough and run enough concepts that they were able to get enough of a menu to really attack that.
The data that
go ahead.
Just real quick, the data that I have on personnel matching, when there's 1 tight end on the field, 11% base. So 89% of the time, they're playing these smaller packages that make them more agile against the pass. When there's 2 or more tight ends on the field, then you're looking at 57% base. And when there's 3 or more tight ends on the field, it moves all the way up to 70%. The only team really that wasn't matching with
Seattle,
with
right?
base was Seattle. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask about. And it's so interesting to me. These are my favorite football discussions, Max. I'm so glad you got into this. This is my stuff right here. But what's so interesting to me is we're not even that far removed from like when Ben McAdoo, for example, is running 91% of his snaps out of 11 personnel in a season. And, you were seeing like base and nickel was basically becoming base defense in the NFL for a while. It still is, I'm sure. I'm sure more snaps are spent in nickel than any other personnel grouping. But what's interesting to me, I wanted to ask you about this and Jacob kind of touched on this. Seattle was the only team not trying to do this, right? Like they felt like, all right, we've got Aminuari, we can match with nickel and be fine. And honestly, people, in my opinion, and I'm curious to get your take on this, give way too much credit to, is that how you pronounce his name? Emanuari? I never got that name right. To like having him on the field. The reality was just really, it was just like Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams and that front making all the difference. And if you can stop the run with 4 men in the trenches, you're going to be fine no matter what personnel you're in. But with that said, the Rams were the only team to exploit the Seahawks defense. As you worked through it, like twice they got them for big numbers twice. And I wonder like what you saw from that matchup and how that impacted, like, are the Rams just like, are teams going to look at that and be like, we need to move forward with this and we need to add more tight ends to our system and we need to find different ways to kind of change our offense?
You know, you're exactly right. And you're very much onto something that is not necessarily coming now, but is coming next. But you're onto it for the exact opposite reason you think. Because if you watch those matchups, and if you watch those 3 matchups, you will see everything you need to know about the next 5 to 7 years of NFL football schematically. Everything. Well, basically, at least on a macro level. The one game that the Rams really struggled offensively against Seattle is when they did lean into the 13 personnel stuff. Because what happened is that the Seahawks just didn't play ball. They just didn't do it. They didn't give them what they wanted. And so they dared them. They said, all right, if you think that if we play nickel, that your solution is going to be to tighten up and run the football on us, do it. Do it. And they didn't. They did it a little. They had a little bit of success. They did not have anywhere near enough success to sustain you, because to run the ball at a level that can actually sustain you like that, to run for like 250 yards in the NFL in a game is so hard. It's so much harder than throwing for 300. And it's so much, it's obviously less efficient. So they dared him to do it and they failed and they ran into a brick wall, and now they blew the Seahawks out because the Seahawks turned the ball over a billion times on the other side. But ironically, they didn't play ball against the Seahawks trying to get them to do the same thing either. And they both slammed their heads into a wall trying to do it. At least the Seahawks, from a play calling perspective on offense, called off the set and tried to throw the ball. It failed because that's a tough world for a non-elite quarterback to live in. But what the Rams did in matchup 2 and 3 is they did that. They did that. They still used plenty of 2 and 3 tight ends, but they used less and they ran the ball less, and they got Stafford in the gun and they asked him to, because at that point, serve's broken, the jig is up, the emperor has no clothes, because you can't, if a team's front is that strong and their run fit structures are that stable and well executed out of light boxes, you're just not going to get enough juice out of what you're doing, even if the solution makes sense in theory. So they went back to 11 a lot, and they got in the gun and they dropped back because there's just nothing else you can do at that point. And you have to do that into difficult defenses, because this isn't dropping back into the 2014 NFL defenses anymore, where they're just playing static cover 3 every snap. They're changing coverages. They're able to scheme up exotic pressures. They're able to change looks on you, and they're able to also be specialized and take away your easy buttons and force you to work. So this is where this becomes a quarterback conversation, and I think this is a few years down the road. I think this is after the NFL adapts back. But what we're going to find out over the next 2 to 3 years, hopefully as teams realize they don't have to play ball and match fake tight ends with base. Like if you have a guy that can't block in line, that's not really a tight end. He's occupying the same blocking role as a power slot. He can maybe do a touch more, but not enough to really make a difference. So you treat him that way. And then what, right? Then offenses are going to figure out like, hey, we don't actually have enough big bodies to really do this for real and actually oblige them. So you have 2 directions to go. You can get bigger with 2 real tight ends, 2 Ys, or you can get smaller and just say the jig is up. We're just going to call off the set and play ball. Then it becomes a quarterback conversation. And in the other direction, it becomes a tight end conversation. And I think teams are always going to want to run the ball and pass out of the same stuff now. I think that the positionless, everything from everything meta is never going back in the bottle. So those flex tight ends are now going to become power slots, the way McVay did previously. So I think we're going to actually go back to that pretty soon. And that brings up an interesting conversation for the tight ends. So in the immediate term, yes, teams are going to copy the Rams. If teams continue to answer with base, it's going to continue to work. Eventually, people are going to copy McDonald on the other side. And obviously, to varying degrees, that's going to work. But you can do what McDonald does with the nickel light box stuff in a million different ways based on your personnel. You don't have to run the same plays and coverages and whatever. Dennis Allen has done it for years in a very different way from a coverage menu and a front presentation perspective. You just need a Jalen Petrie, a Cooper DeJean, whoever. There are a bunch of these guys. Keontae Scott, I think, is one of them in this draft. They're everywhere. And on the other end, you need a power slot. You can't, there's no faking it, right? There's no trying to turn a linebacker into that guy. Generally, there's no trying to turn a tight end into that guy unless they're like Brock Bowers and are truly special. So that's where we're going to go, I think. But yes, they're going to copy both sides of the ball, and then we're going to end up right back.
Yeah, which is funny, and that's like how it goes in the NFL. And I think ultimately, like a lot of it is just going to come down to like who is winning in the trenches. Because in my mind, it does. Like the Rams, it's all good and well, but until they moved away from zone and went to like man power gap scheme, like in the run game, and got the right guys on the interior to be able to do that. That's when they like, I don't know if it works without that. And the same thing goes for Seattle. I'm not sold everything they're doing. Mike McDonald's genius is like works if they don't have those four guys on the front, specifically Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams. And a lot of teams can't match that from a personnel
DeMarcus
standpoint.
Lawrence too. I think
and
we'll
DeMarcus
talk more
Lawrence.
about this later, specifically with the edge stuff, but that's hugely important.
Yeah, it's super important to be able to set the edge. It's like everything. A lot of these teams are now putting like Abdul Carter types on the edge, and that's like very different for your run game than having someone like DeMarcus Lawrence. So
no
it's
question,
a lot of
it's huge. It's everything.
It's everything. Yeah. So it's very interesting. Ultimately, I think that the best teams are going to be the ones that just invest in the trenches as always, but it is interesting to see how it goes. And I'm really happy you shed some light on that and got really into detail on that. We will take our first break now though. We went long on the 30,000 foot view stuff. That's my fault. I apologize. I really wanted to hear Max's take on that. We'll get into some individual players as well as when we get back.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ hits every highlight from all the sports that matter to you.
JJ, we appreciate your time breaking it down.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With the plays you missed.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And analysis to give you an edge.
All we need is 20 points.
I was shaking in my boots.
Texas, Ohio State, who wins this game?
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, streaming free 24/7.
All right, I've got a few things in response to Max. The point you brought about Dennis Allen, I wanted to say that the Bears were the closest of the teams to Seattle in terms of not matching with base personnel. And the Bears are also the team that I alluded to offensively that started copying Sean McVay. I do think that if I had to like name teams where it's like they're pretty forward thinking right now with their coaching staff, they're near the top. I'm really intrigued by what Dallas is going to do with their coaching staff there. Obviously Jacksonville. But yeah, the Bears started using way more 3 tight end sets at the end of the year. And I think that is really interesting for a number of reasons. If they were not nearly as effective with these as McVay, I told you the efficiency was just like off the charts for the Rams. But I wonder if maybe in year 2, if Ben Johnson's able to install this in a more effective way, what that could mean for a number of these players. I think, so people at times last year were like, I remember just like the true sickos that are like so too deep into this, where they're like, Puka Nakua's route rate is down to 75%. Like, should I be worried? And it's like, no, like, no, it's Puka. Like, yeah, he's like, his route rate might drop, but then he'll just average 5 yards per route run. Like, he's still going to be a god. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
But like, it might matter for Luther Burden. I don't know if he's quite that caliber of player where you can just like not care if he's playing less. And I do think it's most likely going to be Rome Odunze who stays on the field when they go to these bigger sets. And so that's something to keep in mind. And I wonder if like maybe the trade of DJ Moore, in addition to signaling that Luther is ready for a bigger role, also might signal that we're going to see more of this from Chicago. They have 2 really good tight ends. Of course, we're obsessed with Colson Loveland. So any thoughts from either of you speculating on what we might see from Chicago this next year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about a shift. I think they're just going to kind of continue in the direction that they're going. I think, like you said, they're kind of doing this more and more. And I think your point about Rome Odunze being the guy who stays on the field. Oh, I mean, look, it's hard to predict because what if Burden's just really good? Then forget it. But I think from an archetype perspective, the initial look for that is going to go to Odunze because besides the fact that their quarterback is 1,000 times better, the big difference between the Rams and the Bears and what they can do in 13 personnel is that they do have more consistent ball winners and not really ball winners, but bucket getters at the X position. And so the whole pretense in a lot of ways, and a big part of it is that when you create those loaded boxes, you just create one-on-ones for your outside guy. So they can press that guy and they'll launch a go ball, or they can play off and you'll throw a comeback or a dig or all that, right? And at the end of the day, it's just a one-on-one. So they were able to create that for huge chunks. And even though the receiver position numerically was minimized by 13 personnel, the guy who was on the field is critically important to how effective that is, because that guy needs to be able to consistently get buckets when they're not, or when they're trying to stop the run. So I don't think the Bears had that guy. Rome Odunze looked potentially like that type early in the year, but he's clearly nowhere near the level of overall difference maker and an answer creator that Nacua and even Devontae Adams, because Devontae Adams is super effective in these situations, especially when you give him enough of a cushion. He can just snap you off on those deep comebacks or deep digs, and they create a free 30 yards out of it. So I think that's a big thing. And I think if the Bears can't find that, that's going to be tougher, because then you need to just throw as many options as you can out there. But yeah, if Odunze is good, it's a disaster. Well, not a disaster, because they're not going to play. I don't think they're going to get to the 40% unless they can truly run the ball as well as the Rams did. But
well, the numbers are interesting. So they used it 125 times. And earlier I said only one other team's even been above 200, dating back to 2000. So 125 is a lot. The most that they used it during the Ben Johnson era in Detroit was 67. So they doubled that in his first year here. And it was 2 times per game where they're using 3 tight end sets, 2 offensive plays per game through week 10. From that point on, it was 10 times per game. And then in the playoffs, it was 14 times per game. So it was like scaling pretty drastically. And I want to keep an eye on it, especially since they just traded away a receiver and haven't replaced them.
Right. Well, I think for them, you have to think about 13 personnel like most teams think about 12, because they don't. The Lions, for instance, if we're one for one comparing them to the Johnson Lions, the Johnson Lions had one tight end who could literally catch the ball like basically at all. I mean, Brock Wright, you can't. So when they were in 12 personnel, they were in 12 personnel, but when the Bears are in 12 personnel, they have 2 guys at tight end who can catch the ball. Because Cole Kmet is not far removed from a 700-yard season with Justin Fields as a quarterback. That guy is a very good receiver. He's not a threat.
We like Cole Kmet on this program for sure.
I think we might have lost Max for a second. Yeah. I think he'll be back with a refresh. But yeah, we are Cole Kmet. I think also I wanted to get Max's take on this when he comes back. He mentioned this earlier, like the advantage when you're using 12 personnel of having 2 Y-type tight ends. That's exactly what the Bears have, which I think gives them a big edge with Cole Kmet and with Colson Loveland on the field. Like Colson Loveland's frame, and I've seen, like, from the guys I've talked to who followed the Big Ten and like who work in the Big Ten, like when I was on the field, like watching Colston Loveland at Michigan, that was a different dude. And he blocked well last year, and his frame allows him to be an even better blocker as he moves forward. That also was something I want to get his take on when he jumps back in. Yeah, I kind of got the gist of where he was going with that. What were your thoughts on his take on that?
Hey, Max.
There he is.
Okay, well, unfortunately, Big Luther Burden is trying to silence me right now. But
you're talking too much wide tight end.
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland both being able to catch the ball. Yeah. So, and so the fact that both, because you can use Loveland as the F, I think Loveland will eventually be a full-time Y as well and be in and out. Depending on who else the tight end is, the same way they use Laporta. Like when they're in 11 personnel and there's just a Y tight end, it's Laporta, and they can do everything from that. But like with both of those guys, it's not the same as when you have him and Brock Wright, because there's really no third tight end to add to that. So it's sort of the equivalent. So I think the numbers kind of track from what they're doing both times.
Max, you want to show people your virtual board before we hit our second break and talk them through what you're talking about when you use these letters to represent positions?
Oh, yes. That's going to be helpful. So I'll just share my screen.
When we get back, I definitely want to get your guys' thoughts on who else other than the Bears might adopt this. If there's anybody you see like a tight end room coming together, or just think that the coaches might be moving in this direction. I've got a few guesses. Definitely going to talk about Drew Petzing and Detroit, mainly just because I love talking about Dan Skipper. That's one of my favorite things, me and Dan, from all the bizarre storylines last year. Dan, do you know that Skipper is now on the coaching staff? Did we lose Dan too? I'm still here.
Sorry,
okay.
I lost it for a second.
Did you know that Dan Skipper's now on Detroit's coaching staff?
I did not know that Skipper.
Yeah, he retired. He's on the coaching staff now.
Wow, good for Dan Skipper.
All right, what are you showing us here, Max?
First of all, I have a question. Do they have to report him as eligible when he's on the coaching staff?
He's always eligible.
All right. So basically, to kind of explain what I'm talking about here. So people use all kinds of different letters for players, for the eligible receivers. The Shanahan guys just use these X, Y, H, F, and Z just to keep it simple. And the only difference between personnel groupings is who is in at what position. So for them, if this guy is a fullback, they're in 21 personnel. If this guy is a second tight end, they're in 12. And if he's a slot, they're 11. These guys all pretty much remain static most of the time, unless you're in 13, in which case one of these two receivers will become a tight end. That's it. You're always going to have 5-0 line. You're always going to have a Y. You're always going to have a running back. You're always going to have a quarterback. And you're always going to have one receiver unless you're on the goal line. So from a tight end perspective, these are the two guys you need to know, the Y and the F. Now, because the run game is important again, because if you don't have enough bodies on the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter what defenses do. They can stop the run. So if this guy, for instance, let's say this guy is a slot right now and you're in 3 wide receiver, you're in 11 personnel. Let's say this guy is, I don't know, Darren Waller, right? Or Harold Fannin, or somebody you don't trust to handle this guy without, assistance or without some kind of trick like moving him off the ball and splitting him on this guy with a running start, right? If you can't block this guy, just like a normal lineman, that's what inline means. It means you are basically one of the linemen. You're following the same blocking rules these guys are. So if you can't do that, you're just so limited in what you can do that it's not hard to stop the run. So you need a guy now in line who can block no matter what. And so with that in mind and with that understood, if you have a tight end that can't block in line in a way that doesn't limit you, he has to be here. There's only one other place he can be. There's only one other role he can be in. And so if you're going to do that and you want this guy to play like 70% of snaps, you better be prepared to play, excluding third downs, because third downs he can move to the Y because there's no need to run the ball anymore. So that's when you can put your flex guy here, almost like a third down running back, like a Sharkhandrick West. That's why I call Dalton Kincaid like the Shane Vereen of tight ends, because he only plays on third down for this reason.
I love this.
But so if you have a guy like, again, like a Fannin or even an Oronde Gadsden until he maybe learns to block in line, because he does have the frame if he can fill it out a little bit. But like Johnny Smith, Chigo Okonkwo, these types of guys, any of them, if they're in that F role and they can't do all the stuff that a slot receiver can, then you're missing a receiver, because you need 3 guys who can really do enough wide receiver stuff just to make your concepts, just to have enough threats and to threaten enough, because if you're pigeonholed, this defense is going to figure it out, and they're going to tailor stuff to you and they're going to choke you out. So that's why it's important to me that on an every down basis, this guy is a power slot, unless you are really committed to being able to run the ball at a truly elite level, because that's going to have to sustain you down to down. So the F is the flex guy. He's the adjuster of the formation, right? If he's here, the passing strength is here. If he's here, the passing strength is here. Because right? Like, just because let's say you put the Y over here, then we move this guy here, passing strength here, passing strength here. Doesn't really matter where this guy is. So this guy tells you a lot about what an offense is. And those are the different letters.
Good stuff, Max. Okay. I want to real quick give you some of the worst PFF run blocking grades at tight end. And
Sure.
I want to find the line because I think these are mostly directionally accurate. Everybody has their own thoughts on PFF. I don't really care. I just want to get Max's.
I like PFF.
Yeah, I just want to get Max's thoughts here on like where the line is for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Somebody who can potentially be. I mean, you talked about Gadsden, like maybe being able to fill out. It feels like he's a long, long ways away. To me, the line seems like it's like Gunnar Helm or something like that, but I don't even know for sure that he can be the guy that I think he can be. So at the very bottom, Chigokonko, not even close. Then it's Gadsden. These are the worst run blocking grades among qualified players. Then it's Kyle Pitts. Then it's David Njoku, which sort of surprised me. That might just be a last year thing. Anybody have any thoughts on that, or is he just kind of worse than I realized in this?
I think he's slowing down. He just doesn't look as athletic in general.
That was my guess. Jonnu Smith, Luke Musgrave, Jawan Johnson, Harold Fannin Jr., Dallas Goedert, I think is weird. I don't know about that one. He was hurt too.
Yeah.
And then we find Bowers. Then we find Tyler Warren, who people build as better than this. And I think it's possible he could fill out. It's not easy to be a rookie.
He's like an on the move. He has like a on the move blocking upside, but he's not like a line of scrimmage blocker. That's my take on it, Max. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the mass. He just needs to adjust. His arms are short, which is part of why it's going to take a little bit, just because he has to adjust to that. But he has arms that are the same length as Brenton Strange and Charlie Warner, who are pretty good in line. So he just needs to adjust technically. I mean, he's 256, 257 at 6'5", so he's got plus weight and strength. I think he'll be fine. He's just got to adjust to a little bit because he's used to just smashing defenders off the line of scrimmage and knocking them off. So he's got to just adjust technically, and I think he'll be fine.
This next one, I definitely want to get Dan's take on. It surprised me seeing this low. It's Theo Johnson.
Yeah, Theo Johnson obviously has the frame to block, and I thought he was good on tape blocking. We didn't think he was like elite on tape blocking. We never had any grade like that. Is that mid pack or is that bottom tier?
This is below Trey McBride, Travis Kelce. It's kind of the next tier.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say that wouldn't technically check out with what we saw on tape, Nick and I. We thought he had a good year blocking on the line of scrimmage. His frame definitely gives him an advantage, and we didn't really have that many losses for him.
Yeah. Okay, so then above the McBride Kelce tier, I think maybe McBride and Kelce are like the bottom of this, where it's like these guys are good enough as receivers to get them on the field basically all the time because their team doesn't that's fine. They're their best option. And I think that's kind of the threshold we're shooting for. So the names here are Cade Otton, Elijah Arroyo, Jake Ferguson, TJ Hawkinson, Gunnar Helm, Tucker Kraft, I think is a better blocker than this. Cole Kmet, Mason Taylor, that's pretty good for a rookie. Ben Sinnott, we have people in the chat saying that they need Ben Sinnott hope. Guys, I don't know, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I thought it was going to be great.
I'm one of the guys in the chat, I guess, because like
I have
really
been.
got nothing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Somebody help me. Yeah. And then Sam Laporta is up in this range. I think that these are all, you could move these around fluidly. They have Isaiah Likely here, which sort of surprised me. Mark Andrews in this range. And then you get into the guys that I think are actually pretty dang good blockers like AJ Barner, Colston Loveland, Colby Parkinson, Mitchell Evans. Did that group that I gave you sound about right? I'm specifically interested in the young guys. We're going to get into them specifically after the break. But did that seem like about the threshold you're shooting for? Like you have to be this good to stay on the field?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can make sense of every single thing that just confused you. And that's why what we're doing with reception perception is so incredible, because it figures all this out. And the thing that it does is, if you notice, these are all just run blocking grades.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at Mark Andrews, if you watch Mark Andrews, if you watch every single one of those snaps on film, and then you go watch Tucker Kraft's snaps on film, and keep in mind, these people are being graded on the same curve, on the same les. They are vastly different. So what Andrews is doing is what Puka Nacua is doing. And same goes for Likely. They're leading to support defenders. They are inserting through the line. They're digging out safeties and nickels. They're occasionally splitting on a backside defensive end and just getting in the way. The whole thing is that they're just kind of getting in the way, usually of second-level defenders. And if it is of first-level defenders, it's on the move, often away from the run. Now, if it's Tucker Kraft, they're running duo right behind him as he's 1v1ing Cam Jordan, head up, in his face. And so, yeah, of course, these grades are going to be suppressed in some cases. Now, if you look at the move guys like a Jawan Johnson or a Chigo Okonkwo who are at the bottom, they're at the bottom with that low degree of difficulty assignment. So if you compare a Jawan Johnson run blocking grade to Puka Nacua's run blocking grade, you're actually going to get something that's more accurate. And the fact is they're going to be honestly pretty similar. Even if the tight end may be able to do a touch more, it's nowhere near enough to make up the gulf in pass catching between them and like Drake London, who, by the way, is better than half of these guys, like as a blocker. And I mean in a vacuum, not adjusted for position. You got to throw out the tight end label here. The only labels that matter for this are F and Y. And Puka Nacua plays the F a lot. Drake London plays the F a lot. Chigo Okonkwo pretty much only plays the F, at least on run downs. So it's a degree of difficulty thing. Now, when you look at guys at the top who are playing in line and grade really well, that's impressive because they're beating the curve. Like a George Kittle and Josh Oliver being the top of the league in run blocking grade, despite the hardest of the hard assignments, that's, top tier stuff. Like Travis Kelce, not really doing much. Now he's done a little bit more, but like, again, he's 250. Like if you're 250 and blocking off the ball, 80% of the time, you better be grading well. And even that's not enough because again, all you need to do is clear the get in the way bar. Whereas when you're in line, it's a whole different game in terms of technique because you're actually a lineman. So it's not enough to have effort and get in the way. You actually have to physically control or at least stalemate a Cam Jordan. And so that explains everything about why these grades don't line up and don't seem to line up. And that's what we're doing with reception perception is we are separating these finally
that's
for the public.
And that's the best part about it. That's the exciting part about it for me because, I love how you broke that down. That's exactly right. There's such a difference between being the tight end on the line of scrimmage, trying to stop a defensive end or an edge, whatever it is, from setting the edge, and then being the guy in space. And it's like, I've made the argument forever, Max, and it's an argument that gets so many of my friends angry at me. I personally think George Kittle is a more valuable player in the NFL than Travis Kelce.
Yeah, it's not even a conversation.
All right, let's hit our second break.
But then we're looked at as crazy.
It's not even close.
We're looked at as crazy for saying that, honestly.
Yeah, well, if you ask coaches about it, they're not going to. They won't think you're crazy.
They know the receiver, right? But if you ask an actual NFL coaching staff, you'd be like, "Yeah, I have a two-way player in Kittle, who's essentially an extra offensive lineman and a receiver." Versus just a pure receiver in Kelsey's, but the stats are obviously
right because again, like we said, you got to handcuff that guy to another tight end on standard downs. Kittle, you don't. You can have three receivers and an elite receiver playing on the offensive line. That's a whole different level of value.
It did, yeah, exactly, and that's
pretty
also
impactful.
So much rare.
Receiver, pretty impactful receiver. Like
one of the that's the thing.
Impactful receivers ever.
If it's even a little bit close in anything from a receiving perspective, in any one tiny metric, then the discussion's over.
Yeah, I don't even think it needs to be close to be because
it kind of
football like football. It's so much more valuable to have these unicorn players. There's really what's left in the NFL. This is always why I argued Gronk was to me one of the best of all time. And you asked Belichick about Gronk on the line of scrimmage as a blocker, it was unbelievable. But how many Kittles are even left in the NFL at this point?
Zero.
Right?
He's the last one.
There's a lot of.
That's why I'm like That's why I went when he got hurt in the postseason. I was that was tough.
Yeah,
because I wrote a whole 5,000 word thing about it after the week after it happened on Remember the Tight Ends. In case we've seen the last of this guy at the peak of his powers, we have lost something that we don't have another of.
Yeah, I don't know when we'll get that again, and especially interesting because out of Iowa, obviously he went through that Iowa coaching, so he had the fundament, but he was not the blocker that you saw flashes of it, but he's become an even better blocker at the NFL level.
Yeah, when you get a guy sorry, let's go.
Go ahead.
I can talk about Kittle for six hours.
Yeah, we could go hours. We'll take another quick break and we get right back into it.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars. What a difference she has made.
The question is, can you handle it? A crowd
electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
All right, before I get us back on track here, I want to ask if, Max, your opinion on how close Tucker Kraft is to Kittle.
80%. In many ways, he's very close. But the difference between Kittle and Tucker Kraft is that I think Kraft is very much just a supercharged pure tight end as a receiver. I think he's very limited as a beater of man coverage. As far as just, running a diverse route tree, just because he doesn't decelerate very well, which is unsurprising considering he's 260 pounds and incredibly fast.
Yeah.
It's literally like trying to slow down a train, which is tough. But what was so great about Kittle is and I don't want to use him in the past tense because he's going to play again, but 32 with an Achilles, you never know. But George Kittle has fluid hips and agility, and you put it everything about George Kittle, and I'll write about this at some point this offseason when things quiet down a little bit. Everything you need to know about George Kittle, you can see this year when they played Cleveland, what they did out of nub formations. I can bring the whiteboard back if it's not a huge logistical nightmare. That would be helpful.
Bring it back.
Okay. All right, we're getting back to the whiteboard. So,
yeah, when I brought up Kraft, it wasn't necessarily so much like a stylistic comparison, but just in terms of impact as a blocker and a receiver. I know he's a different type.
All right, I'll hold off on the whiteboard because I'm going to end up going for longer than I want. Okay. Impact, but that's the thing is the impact comes in all the stuff that he can do. You can't really do this stuff with Kraft because he was lining up. You put him in a nub, and I'll write about this, not to go into too much detail, but you can put the safety there and deal with the extra gap in the run game, or you can leave the corner back to that side and put a safety over with the three receivers and have a corner as your primary force defender with George Kittle. Yeah. And so what they did is they started with Rayshon Jenkins there, and he was getting toasted in man coverage because the Browns are a big man coverage team. And then so they switched and put Denzel Ward there. And ironically, instead of running the ball, they just kept throwing to George Kittle, and it kept working because he was dusting him in man coverage. But, the fact that guy can dust Denzel Ward basically as the X receiver on legitimate comebacks and digs and stuff, like X receiver stuff, and then, run the ball, be an extra tackle on the line of scrimmage, it's totally different than just a guy who is a high-end slot like Kelsey or Bowers, but is a normal high-end slot. That can maybe do a little bit more, but he's more like Drake London, with a pump than
for sure. Yeah, and maybe
to anything else.
You talking about this example against Denzel Ward as a Chiefs fan made me think of Brock Bowers doing this crap to Trey McDuffie, where it's he just can't stop him. It's not fair. But he's obviously not the blocking impact that Kittle is. So Loveland is the other one that I think of, and I'm curious what you think of his potential to elevate into this impact of type of a player. Is it just not enough on the blocking side to be in that discussion?
Yeah, I think in part because Kittle is such a rare blocker. He's Josh Oliver good. He's as good as all of these pure block types. He's Brock Wright good. He's the kind of guy you sign just for blocking. But I think with Loveland, I think he's missing a little bit as a receiver too. I think has the ability to be from a pure wide receiver type perspective where you're running that diverse route tree and separating against man coverage just as good because he's such a complete route runner in so many ways. But he doesn't have the burst and the yak that Kittle has and the ability to explode through a gap and take it for 50. That's the thing that Kittle has. Even Kelsey's always been a great yak guy, but he's not this. This guy is a train that has helicopter type control and is just bowling people over. He's one of the most dangerous yak threats ever. And that's where Tucker Kraft is very much Kittle's equal, in my opinion, is in this way. And you see a lot of that stuff, but you also see the Tucker Kraft yak plus the Travis Kelce wide receiver type skills. And so I don't think Colston Loveland's going to have that level of ball in his hands playmaking ever. And I don't think obviously he'll be the blocker either, but I actually think he has the chance to potentially be pretty good in time, which is going to make him, let's not compare him to a unicorn, but he's going to be an unbelievable total player.
Absolutely. The
Careful
people
about how you talk about Colson Loveland on this show.
the people
Oh my
here
God,
know.
he's outstanding. He's so
All right.
good.
I do want to get the question, then we're going to talk about Loveland and all these guys individually. Any guesses as to who might adopt the McVay usage? I really think Drew Petzing might. He did it a lot in Arizona. They were second in the league in the number of 3 tight end sets that they used. Different tight end room here in Detroit than he had there. But Detroit actually did it at times last year too. Another thing Detroit did is they used Dan Skipper a lot, where they would bring in this extra offensive lineman. That was something we saw happening a lot in the league last year too, is teams using extra offensive linemen more and more. And so Skipper's now on the coaching staff. I wonder if they might change up their tight end usage a little bit. Shane Steichen did it a lot. And so this is another team that traded away a wide receiver 1 on their team. I wonder if maybe they shift to more of this. They have a lot of tight ends. And then the other 2 are just 2 young coaches who kind of come from trees like this that use this kind of stuff to maybe could do it. I haven't checked with their personnel enough, and it's Mike LaFleur with the Cardinals and David Blau maybe with Washington. Shout out Ben Sinnott. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts on anybody to keep our eye on that might be doing this more and more? Because it's not only is it interesting, but it impacts everything. Like having more tight ends out on the field makes it a lot easier for the receiver to get a target, or the receiving tight end, Colson Loveland. If you look at per route data at the tight end position last year, all of a sudden Colby Parkinson looks like a superstar. Where the hell did that come from?
Dude, he is really good. He's only making like $7 million a year too.
He's a lot better than people realize. I think that catch at the end of the year, where people are like, "Whoa, like he's actually big." Last year, 2024, people thought their Loki might be a breakout there, and it didn't really come. And then everybody was just like, "Oh, he's bad." And it's like, no, he's not bad.
Never thought that. I wanted him on the Bengals so bad for years.
But anyway, he literally was first, just ahead of Colson Loveland in first downs per route run last year at the tight end position. That he's not that good. I don't think. Right. I don't think he's the best tight end in the league. And I think that speaks to more of these formations helping the receivers who actually can get open. So it could be key if we're able to identify, maybe Indianapolis does this a lot. Maybe that helps Tyler Warren a lot, or Alec Pierce, or whoever it might be.
I mean, you look at just
Dan, sorry. I was going to actually ask what you think about this, because I am very curious for a particular reason.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, because I was going to say, if you look at just the example that's closest to me, the team I watch thousands of hours of tape on every year, the Giants last year, even out of 12, and then they went to some 13 personnel, those were all of Jackson Dart's best splits, literally across the board, out of 12 and 13 personnel. Part of that is they didn't have good receiver personnel once Neighbors went down. So that's a part of it. But then you look at what they did this offseason. They brought in Isaiah Likely. I guess you can call that 12 personnel that they're going to run with Likely and Theo Johnson. That's probably just going to be a power slot role for Likely. But they also made him the highest paid fullback in NFL history, Patrick Ricard. And Patrick Ricard, I've watched Ricard tape. He's not just what you expect out of the fullback position. He's basically an H-back, which is essentially a tight end. And they're using him on the move and motion to try to get him in space and blocking. But you could also sometimes, not often, get him the ball as a receiver. So I just think the Giants could be a very good example. I think the Titans could be a good example too. I think Brian Daboll saw what 12 personnel did for his offense last year, after not using it forever and just being such a very 11 personnel heavy guy, and then brought in Daniel Bellinger to the Titans when they already had Gunnar Helm on that roster, who you love, Jacob, and I'm sure they like as well if they're watching his tape. So I think those are 2 teams that could be headed in that direction for different reasons, but just 2 that come to mind.
Dan, I cannot tell you how upset I was when Todd Monken took the Browns job. Not because as a Bengals guy, I'm threatened by the Browns or anything. I mean, look, they're gonna shove us in the locker defensively every once in a while, just because Denzel Ward owns Jamar Chase, and Myles Garrett's Freddy Krueger. But besides that, I'm not threatened by them competitively on the divisional scale. I was so looking forward to what they were going to do. And I did expect them to sign Isaiah Likely kind of the whole time. I thought for a while the Commanders would do it because, like you said, David Blau is a good option too. And now that they got Okonkwo, who's basically the same guy, a little bit less good of a blocker, a little bit more linear, but whatever. Pretty, basically the same guy. I was so excited for what they were going to do with Dart, an improving offensive line, Theo Johnson, who I think is, when he finishes developing technically as a blocker. There's still some leverage and balance and handwork stuff that he needs to get better at. But it's a long developing process. It really is, especially at this position. So he's right where I want him to be. And the stuff they could have done originally, I thought it would be Bellinger, but then they go bring in Ricard as that move guy, as like a super move guy who can also block in line. He was the 11 personnel tight end a lot for Monken, and he was handcuffed to Andrews and Likely pretty often. Him and Kohler were. They kind of rotated like hockey lines between the four of them. They had their forwards, which were Likely and Andrews, and their D-men, which were Ricard and Kohler. So I was really excited, man. All the QB run stuff they could have done with Dart, all that creative stuff, just the diversity with all of those blockers on the field and the ability to create chunks out of it, which, in a lot of ways are easy for a developing quarterback with a lot of arm talent, who's more impressive than I thought he was going to be. So I thought that would be a great way to create a ton of chunks, create a lot of easy situations in his development, and create an insanely efficient offense, just in the vein of the way we've seen these other teams do it. And I thought Monken, with what we've seen in Baltimore, was just like, it was going to be really fun. It was going to be really, really fun.
Of the offseason for me as a Giants fan.
I grew up a Giants fan, I'm familiar. But that's not why I'm devastated about this. It's just as a tight end guy. However, to circle back to it, though, one more thing. Imagine how devastating that would have been with Malik Neighbors at the X.
Right.
I mean, that one-on-one, it's like, if you don't load the box, we're going to run all this. And with the QB run game, adding the extra number with all the creative shit they can do there, forget it. That would have been insane. And then if you don't load the box, if you don't load the box, you're giving up 6.5 per carry. If you do, Malik Neighbors is just going to kill you.
The whole thing seemed great.
It's not dead. It's not dead. I don't think Matt Nagy will do anything near the level of run game stuff that Monken will. Even if they try similar things, it just won't be the same. However, the Chiefs have actually used quite a bit of 3 tight end because of Kelsey in recent years. So especially in that 2022 season, when Kelsey was basically the number 1 receiver, they used a ton of 13 personnel because Kelsey gives you a second wide receiver. So I don't think the Giants fully have that, but I think they can, if they do it right, from a run game perspective, which they won't because, RIP Todd Monken to New York, but they can do a lot of that. They can do a lot of that 3 tight end stuff and use Malik Neighbors as a conflict creator. So, I hope maybe Matt Nagy's a genius and we just have never known it. And maybe they do it, I think they're a huge team that can do it. The Colts as well. I think they have a similar thing with Alec Pierce, just as a one-on-one winner. And they can overcommit in that other direction, especially with a good O-line still intact. Taylor's still good. And then you have Tyler Warren, who can really be a threat stretching the field there. So they're going to do it too. I think the Chargers are a serious threat to do it. I think it's going to be more 22 personnel, I think, than it is going to be 13 with Ingold. But it's the same thing. They can't really play as much 21 as they want with Gadsden because, 21 personnel is tough in the modern NFL because there are so few tight ends that can play in line at a high level and catch the ball. So you usually have to do the 2 tight end thing, just because you have to create a wide tight end in the aggregate, which sucks. But that's why I think the 2 tight end stuff is going to go away soon, as we talked about earlier. But I think they're a good candidate too, because Gadsden has a little bit of that receiver ability and background as well. I think they need a more reliable downfield threat. But if Ladd McConkey's healthy, that's a conflict creator. That's a one-on-one winner. And so the ingredients are, 2 tight ends that can block in the core. The Giants have that with Manhertz and Johnson, a move guy, and a one-on-one winning receiver. And that's what we saw the Rams have, because the move guy's got to be the half a second receiver. Those are the component parts of this. Okay. So look for teams that have that.
Yeah.
I think
And
we've
draft
got
actors. There's so many in this class.
Yeah, we got some interesting ones there. Maybe it's not actually going to be Josh Downs' breakout season, get on the field more like we all hope for. I do think the Colts are probably the most likely of the ones that we talked about.
He will. I think he'll get more targets, even if he doesn't get on the field more, regardless.
Dan, how you doing, man? You okay through all that Giants Todd Monken stuff?
Yeah, look, it's just crazy. Like, I didn't know, like, I'd never expected Todd Monken to get an NFL head coaching job, but the Browns are such an absolute mess that everybody turned them down, and they're like, this is our best option. Like, and it honestly was their best option. So, like, good for them, and good for him, I guess. I mean, is that a good job for him? I feel like he's going to be the Giants OC next year, regardless. Like,
no, because we as a league, we've just basically been robbed of Todd Monken. It's like giving Gordon Ramsay.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. Like,
Deshaun's going to start there too. That's the funny part that people aren't talking about.
Oh,
like,
God.
when they go to camp, there's no way Sanders will beat out Deshaun. Sanders is so bad at football.
All right, let's talk about Harold Fannin Jr. We're going to get into individual profiles here. We'll keep it with Todd Monken. I want to talk about Harold Fannin Jr., and then I want to talk about Oronde Gadsden. Those two individually, I think that they're interesting parallels, and we've been, talking about these two teams. So give us your thoughts on Fannin first, Max.
Well, I mean, for starters, he's a very solid football player. He's really good. His target share, however, is a sign of deep disease within the Browns offense. Like that, it's, I think we assume rationality a lot with this kind of stuff. And we ask what a guy was given and what role he did play. And we don't ask, because that's good retrospectively, but predictively, we have to ask whether or not that's good. And I think Fannon's a good player. He should play a lot. Like, he's really useful. But if you cannot have him as your every down F, because he's just not a slot receiver. He's not a power slot, even though he blocks in the same role as a power slot. So you can attach him to the formation and get like some of the tight endy stuff, right? Where you're popping him behind the linebackers on play action and the flat and all that. But unless your run game is seriously credible, as teams stop treating non-true tight ends as tight ends, that stuff should go away. Unless their run game, the rest of their run game is so dominant that it can give him that. I don't know how sustainable that he's going to play, but from a fantasy and volume perspective, I think it'll be good next year because it's not like they're fixing their receiver room anytime soon. And it's not like, and Todd Monken, is clearly comfortable using multiple tight ends and using this move guy. So I think he's going to do a lot of Isaiah Likely type stuff, but with potentially a higher volume because of where he's at. So he's a good one for now. And I definitely think as a rotational guy that you use for certain things, he's going to have a long NFL career. I just think that the fantasy part of this might drop out, sort of like a Jonnu Smith.
I wonder if he can develop into a full-time tight end and be in the bottom range of that threshold of guys that I gave earlier. He just started playing tight end relatively recently, I think 4 years ago. He's also extremely young. I know he's a little bit undersized, but I do.
I would throw all that out if you were like, yeah, he doesn't have the size.
Yeah, the blocking reps were rough last year.
Yeah, if you look at when they played the Lions were targeting him. Like they were just straight up, and this is what's going to happen to these guys. Is that they're just going to dedicate the end to their side when they're in line to straight up two-gapping them, and you can basically totally cancel a gap because you're caving that guy. So you can cheat in the other direction of the run knowing that the defensive end is just going to be able to cave both gaps. And that's what I would do. That's what teams did to the Dolphins with Jonnu Smith when they were in 21 or 11 with him at the Y. So like it's getting to that threshold where you can play in line credibly is extremely high. That's extremely high. That is very difficult. And I think that we kind of understate what getting serviceable there means, because it means like Sam Laporta, who's capable of 1v1ing a defensive end on a base block. Somewhat, at least serviceably. That's hard because those guys are bigger than you. They're stronger than you. They spend more time on the line of scrimmage than you because you're splitting your time because you're not doing full-time O-line Indy. They're doing full-time D-line Indy, and they got 30 pounds on you. So it's hard. It's hard. And you can't just maybe, but he'd have to be way stronger than his body.
Yeah.
And we've never seen it.
Yep. Never. What do you mean?
Not even in college. Like they didn't let him do this in college.
Yeah.
In the MAC.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I want to check in on that because I feel like he's really, really gone, kind of through the roof in terms of dynasty value. And I keep bringing it up as like, it's a different coaching staff. I think that Monken still could maximize him, but it's not like Isaiah.
I think in the short term, until they start to rebuild their receiver room potentially, short term he's live. Like he's good. He's a good player and he's going to get the ball. Yeah,
for sure. But it just it strikes me as much different than last year, no matter what. Like going forward, I think last year is probably the aberration. Maybe it'll be similar this year. But I don't know. People seem to assume like he's going to be this guy. And I think it's interesting as we transition to Gadsden here, like for both of these players, it's probably more realistic that some of these lower guys that we're going to talk about stick around. If I had to guess, I don't know how to balance it in terms of like projecting long-term value. It's like the upside, if they are able to stick around and establish themselves as a highly productive receiver, is there, but the probability of like that outcome seems lower than the probability of them just like proving to be Dalton Kincaid.
Right. I mean, Dalton Kincaid, by the way, if we are abandoning the grading curve that is critical to, everything I talk about, just grading on tight ends in a vacuum, Dalton Kincaid is one of the best pass catchers in the league at the position, and he's still not over that bar. Like the Kelsey Bowers line is insane. These guys are like you have to be a historically good receiver for your position.
Okay, let's talk about Gadsden. Because he's one that Dan and I have had a tough time with. We speculated maybe the Chargers use more multiple tight end sets. They've got a lot of guys that they could use. They got a lot of young pass catchers that they like. Yeah. Give us your thoughts on Gadsden, Max.
I actually I think there's potential there because I think he's got more of a frame than Fannin. Fannon's pretty much, I think, physically mostly maxed out. But Gadsden, I think, he's pretty lean. He's gotten bigger over the last couple of years. He was a receiver to begin with, so he's new to putting on the weight. So it's not like this has just been who he is. And he's got good length, too. And he's 6'4", 6'5". So if he can he's a guy that has potentially the raw materials to be serviceable in line. But like Fannin, I think he's still going to play a lot. He's still going to touch the ball. Like both of these guys are going to be third down tight ends. And, there's potentially a lot of volume in that. And if they play on a terrible team and they end up down a lot, like the Browns, Fannin's going to get his 4, honestly, like he was catching like 3-4 just pure checkdowns a game on obvious pass situations. If you're in PPR, he's gonna play enough to touch the ball for you. But Gadsden, I think, is gonna have to do that for sure. I think he's gonna be, again, these guys are if they can't play that full-time role, they're more useful real-life players than they are fantasy, unless their teams suck and they are higher up on the target hierarchy than they should be for a healthy unit. So you can look out for that too. Like I would definitely be on like Juwan Johnson last year was a great example of that. That's you can look out for those guys, but I think expecting these guys to almost nuclear power themselves as producers, it's not going to happen unless they can play in line or they are full-time receivers like Brock, or good enough to be a full-time receiver like Brock Bowers or Kelsey. Because you're just waiting on situation at that point.
I know that you're kind of Dan's been very excited for Gadsden, but is starting to get a little bit nervous.
I'm tempering those excited expectations, unfortunately.
Okay, so
excited for him as a player, excited for him as a prospect. What I saw on tape, but it's a lot of the things that Max has talked about today are a big reason why I'm tempering my expectations.
Yeah, but Dan, I will tell you, I will light the hopium fire a little bit though.
Yeah,
there's a prospect a few years ago out of San Jose State who was undersized, mostly played flex receiver, very similar frame to Gadsden.
I'm trying to remember who this was.
And that guy is now Josh Oliver.
Oh, Josh Oliver, yeah.
So a lot can happen if he gets
there.
I'm not saying he's ever going to be that level of blocker, but he does not have to be.
And they trusted him a lot. Like I remember watching a lot of Chargers film with Jacob last year for BTB, and like there were surprising level of trust with him in some of those 11 personnel looks with him on the line of scrimmage that I was surprised about so that maybe there's some hope that Harbaugh and the coaching staff believe in him. Obviously, McDaniel changed a lot. They just have so much talent at receiver. That's the part that really like gives me caution. Like I can't like we'll see, but I feel like 11 personnel for that team should be their most used personnel package personally.
Not with McDaniel, it won't be. It's going to be 21 and 22.
Well, was McDaniel always 21 and 22 like during the early Tua years when Tua was lighting it up?
Yeah, I mean, he was more like for most years over the last. I can't tell you what the early 2 years were.
Yeah, I want to look.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but like over the last like 3 years, it's him and Shanahan every year. The 21 personnel guy.
Agreed, and I think a big part of that is the way they structured the offense around the limitations of the personnel being Tua and not just Tua, but like their tackle situation in the pass game, and obviously Brewer's breakout in the run game, like at center. There were a lot of factors that I think led to this. I'm curious though if that's going to stay the same. If we're going to use data from recent McDaniel Tua offense and just project it forward. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but like I feel like McDaniel is going to be working with something he's never worked with by like any remote stretch in Justin Herbert. That's how strongly I feel about Herbert's tape. And I know it's a hot topic and among fans and Twitter and everything, but I watch a lot of Justin Herbert and I don't see many. He hits the backside of routes more than any quarterback basically in the NFL at this point. Nobody really even thinks about him as like the high level processing. They just think about the traits. So I wonder how that impacts. Because like if you have somebody who can really just, and Harbaugh's talked about this, it's like he thinks it's superhuman. Herbert drops back. His helmet is literally pointed in that direction, but he has a full idea of what's going on the backside of a route. If you have a quarterback like that and with the arm talent and then fit it into that window, you're better off running like 3x1 sets and 11 personnel, I think, at least. Because it's so like when you're going to these 21, this is a larger topic. I can end it here. But when you're going to these 21, 22 personnel looks, like you said, McDaniel likes to do, to me, it at least says something about you feel there's some limitation at quarterback. That's just how
I don't necessarily agree. I think broadly, yes. But where did we start this conversation talking about, right? We talked about the Rams, who had the best quarterback in the NFL last year. And we're just launching nukes out of this stuff because their quarterback can do it. So I think with Herbert and how he can throw the ball vertically and how you kind of have to force him to throw the ball vertically sometimes by dressing it up. But when he does it, like bombs away. So I would, with a quarterback like Herbert, he's also a guy I can, if I need to call off the set, like they did with Stafford, I can do that. It's just like, this is pure for the offense. And it's a great way to get efficiency. But with him launching those bombs, that's going to be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That could be special.
Do a lot out of those heavier personnel. Okay, I like it.
All right. So setting some reasonable expectations for Oronde Gadsden, we feel pretty good, actually, coming out of that conversation, I feel like, because of the infrastructure around him there, the Mike McDaniel factor of it. That's good to know because I've actually been a little bit more leery of him, and a lot of that came before McDaniel, but him and Fannin I've talked about a decent amount, but I really wanted to get Max's take on them. Let's talk about Terrence Ferguson. I already know that Max likes Terrence Ferguson a lot, but I noticed earlier when you mentioned the Rams having all these good blocking tight ends, you listed every tight end on the depth chart except for Terrence Ferguson. Which I took personal offense to. He blocked well last year, according to PFF, but maybe that was just about the assignments specifically that he was filling. How do you see him on this hierarchy of, let's say, Gadsden's here, Mitchell Levin's our boy, we're going to get to him, is up here. Is Ferguson closer to one of those two for you?
Dude, he's not even viable right now. Like they do not let him block. Now that's not surprising to me because his technique last year Oregon was horrific, which is good because you can correct that over time. And that happens all the time. It really does. So he's 6'5", 250, and I think he's strong. So he's got the raw materials. It's just going to take a little bit to do. I'm not anywhere near concerned about it yet. So, but when he gets there, he's going to be a monster because he's going to play a lot and he's going to be a matchup nightmare at the Y. And he's also going to play in the multi-tight end sets. So I think his upside is still insanely high. He's not Loveland or Warren, but like, I think he can be like a real playmaker. He's just not there. He's nowhere near there yet as blocker. They asked him to do more and more and more and more and more over the season, but that was really just as a receiver. Like he was really sheltered to 13 personnel and 3 tight ends because, like, man, they don't trust him at all. However, that was baked in for me when I said he was a really high end prospect and I liked him a lot. So we're still on course, but we're gonna have to see that first before he really starts to put up true numbers.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm very excited for T-Ferg. I've been thinking that it could happen this next year.
It could.
Yeah, it
could happen. It could happen at any point.
Yeah. Okay. But Max does believe he's still a long ways away as a blocker.
I'm not concerned, though. I am not concerned.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about 2 of my other favorites here. It's Gunnar Helm and Mitchell Evans. I think that it's like Mitchell Evans, then Helm, then Ferguson, then Gadsden and Fannin if we're like ranking these guys as blockers. I think Mason Taylor is basically where Helm is, but probably has more upside. Does that all sound about right to you? I think that there's upside for Helm and Evans to develop into like full-time starting tight ends and be good pros.
These guys might be around forever. Evans looks great as a blocker. I think he has. He wasn't as good of an athlete as I had potentially hoped at the combine, but he was pretty decent-ish. And his receiving tape at Notre Dame is fine. He'll never be a flex guy or anything, but as a high-end blocking Y, you could pop behind the linebackers for some stuff and maybe do some work on safeties underneath and linebackers underneath in your shorter passing game a little bit. He's not going to be a huge drop back threat. But like as a play action guy off of that Y, because he's that inline element, I think he could be a useful receiver. I don't know about his fantasy upside, because I don't think he'll ever be a guy that's putting up more than 400 to 600 yards a year. But you can maybe get some touchdowns out of a guy like that. So if you're in a bind, who knows? But I think he's going to be around for a long time. He's going to be a really good player if he can stay healthy, because he had issues with that. Gunnar Helm, talk about Gunnar Helm. And this is, I guess, a little bit of hopium for Ferguson, is that he wasn't quite as bad as Ferguson from a technique perspective at Texas as a blocker, but he was pretty rough. Like, he was bad. His base was out of control. He had no balance. His hands were super wide. It was not good. It was really good in year 1. It was really solid. So there was a big improvement there. And he has the length. He has the size. He has all the raw materials, and he's got some good fluidity. He's got a little bit of quickness. He's not a yak demon or anything, but he can shake you and make a play. So I think he's going to be a useful detacher as a Y as well. I don't think he'll be a flex guy really ever, but as one of those 400 to 600 yard guys who blocks in line and is your 4th option in the passing game if you've built your roster correctly, that's a seriously useful player. That's a way more useful guy than somebody who's putting up 750 yards but can only play in a role that could otherwise be occupied by a wide receiver. So I love those guys. Like, those guys look exactly like I had hoped.
I think Helm has the upside for a lot more as a receiver. I don't think he's way behind Tyler Warren. That probably sounds crazy, but when I watched Warren's way more powerful, but Gunnar Helm definitely can create with the ball in his hands, and he's a legitimately good route runner. I think he's a better downfield route runner than Warren in terms of what we've seen. Maybe Warren can do it. And I also think he had close to as good of hands as Warren, which is crazy because Warren's hands are insane. I thought it was those two at the top of the class, and then no one else was close to them in terms of hands. I think he's so underrated. So I am hyped that you're backing me up on these two. I agree that the receiving upside is probably limited for Evans. The main reason I mentioned Evans is because he's literally free, even in tight end premium leagues. You could just pick him up. And he's a guy who will probably be a starting tight end, if I had to guess. And if he lands on the right team, could give you 600 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns. And that's important for those types of leagues.
Yes.
Okay. Any hope for Elijah Arroyo? This is a guy that people were really excited about because of the athleticism. We're obviously going to talk about Sadiq today and the athleticism at tight end and how maybe, I don't know, we don't want to get carried away with it. They need to be a good player. I wasn't convinced that Arroyo would be a good fantasy player. I think he can win down the field. We saw that a little bit in his rookie season, but he did not grade out well as a blocker at all. Do you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, The thing I'm most worried about, honestly, is injuries, just because he had such a long injury history in college and then struggle within the league for year one. Those things just, especially at this position, have a way of staying with you. So I'm certainly worried about that. I think there's definitely hope. I mean, he was, at times they used him more as a blocker than I had necessarily anticipated. Certainly more than a lot of pure flex guys. And he's obviously got the size and the linear athleticism. So I think in time there could potentially be something there. And I think that they definitely believe in him. I don't think they went out and got anybody crazy. People were like because they have so much cap space. People were talking about them going to get Isaiah Likely, but this is good for that. I think, I think there's definitely hope. I just need to see it first. And I'm worried about him staying on the field.
Right.
I mean, he has a lot of the raw materials to be a really good player.
Is it just because of health, or I don't know if he's a good enough blocker? You think he can be as good of a blocker as somebody like Mason Taylor?
Maybe not, but from a size, strength, length perspective, in theory, he should have enough. Yeah, I mean, I think Ferguson, when he gets this right, actually has a little bit of a lot of size behind him, so could potentially be really solid. He's just got to figure out the technique because he has the body. I think Arroyo's a touch thinner than you would like, but I think he could be I think he could be solid. I think he could be solid enough to play, and I think they're going to be probably in the heavy personnel world for a little bit now.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe in between T-Ferg and Gadsden in terms of maybe being able to become that type of a player. I agree with you that Gadsden put on weight. When I saw him as a rookie, I was like, wow, he looks a lot bigger than he did in the collegiate film. Okay. Do you have any thoughts on Mason Taylor? Because I have basically nothing. I think he's just a totally serviceable tight end, and he's really young. So if you just want to invest in that, then maybe it works out, but he's also on the Jets.
Yeah, I think he's really good. I don't think he's really, really good, but I think he's that. I think he's just I compared him to Heath Miller coming out, and I think he's just kind of like that. I think he's obviously super suppressed by his situation. Even Garrett Wilson can't get the ball there, but the blocking is quite impressive for a rookie who I think I really like the raw materials, and I think the technique was okay. I just think he needed some work, and I think because of the youth, it was going to be a bit of a strength transition for him, just because he's coming in so young that it's a physical. No matter what you weigh, that's a physical adjustment when you're as young as he is. So I think he's got a lot of upside as a really useful Y type pass catcher, almost like a Cole Kmet as well. Who I think is fantastic. So I think he's that kind of player. I think for fantasy, it's really obviously going to be situation dependent as it is for everybody, but especially for him. But he's got legitimate upside potentially as a receiver. I think we've seen flashes of that during the draft process. He's really athletic and he's really young. The Jets have they have their starting tight end for the next however long he's there.
Yeah, it's possible that they truly need a quarterback and a coach, and that's it. Their line is really good and young, and they have Mason Taylor, and they have Garrett Wilson, and they have Breece Hall. I don't know.
Good luck to them finding.
You have to rebuild that defense out too.
All they need are the two most important things,
and a defense. I feel like,
and that also pretty important. Okay, one last rookie from the 2025 class I want to get to is Jackson Hawes.
Deep cut.
Did not need any help getting on the field from a physicality standpoint or as a blocker. Really was good. And then if you look at his production, it was actually pretty good on a per opportunity basis as a receiver. I'm wondering if he's just a gimmicky guy like a Darnell Washington or something like that, or if he can maybe be a full-time tight end. Do you have any thoughts on him?
It depends what he can give you. If he can give you 250, 300 yards as a receiver, he will probably start somewhere, just because there are so few of the inline guys that can do anything now that those guys tend to start. So
do you think he can be better than Dawson Knox or no?
Probably not. Because Dawson Knox is really good.
I know.
And the fact that they extended him is that makes me think about it a little bit. I think the odds are he's probably just going to be a pure blocker, but maybe he can be a little bit more. I mean, he never caught the ball in college, and that usually doesn't bother me. But the difference between not catching, quote unquote, not catching the ball and straight up just literally never even seeing it is a little something.
Okay. I think we found the line here. I think Mitchell Evans, worth rostering in these deep sicko leagues. Jackson Hawes, probably not. One more name I want to bring up, not from this rookie class. He's kind of a redshirt rookie. Eric All Jr., were you a fan of his coming in? I really, really liked him. I've got him on all my dynasty teams. Am I crazy? Is this something that might actually hit?
Like, I think he can play. I think he's also had 4 knee injuries in his last 4 seasons of playing football. And like, that's irrelevant. I cannot imagine. Like, if you had, it's not even just different injuries. It's 4 knees. Oh, like every single year at this point. And he missed the whole season after 4 knee injuries. I mean, like, it's, I don't know if Dan, you're a Mets fan, but you remember the Jed Lowry situation?
Yeah, I am a Mets fan, and oh yeah, I do.
Yes, it feels like the Jed Lowry situation.
It's fair.
I'm just laughing here with our producers at Max's like 5-second pause. Is he like, how do I say this to Jacob? Okay, Dan, did you have anything on any of those guys, or are you ready to dive into the rookies?
Those are your deep cuts. I do not have anything on them at the time. I have to do more of a deep dive into those players if the time presents itself for fantasy. Right now, I feel like those are your tight end premium deep dives.
No other 2025 rookies you want to talk about? Like we talked about Loveland and Warren at the top. Do you guys want to spend any more time with them? Do you have anything, Max, specifically you want to add on those guys, or we want to move on to this 26 class?
I mean, I think they're pretty much as advertised. They're both awesome. I think they're different players. I think they're similar overall caliber right now, but they're different players. And we'll see where they go. I think they're both going to be great players for a long time.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the 26 class. Is Kenyon Sadiq your tight end 1 from this class, Max?
No.
Interesting.
Wow,
Tell us about it.
No, he's
that's
not.
the first big take. I love that.
Really? Is it really?
Tell us about it. We don't know. He's the only tight end I've watched.
No, I mean, like I was sure I'd given a big take at some point today.
No. There are different levels of big takes. You brought
That's
big
true.
takes. This is a earth-shattering type take. That I don't think I've seen anyone not have him as tight end 1 in the class.
Yeah, I mean, look who everybody's had as tight end 1 for the last like 10 years, right? I mean,
right.
And the nice thing is I feel somewhat unchained by that a little bit, just because the league has got it so wrong for so long that, like, if I don't think the consensus guy is tight end 1, I just don't really care. I think he's has a chance to be a useful player, but as willing as he is in line, and as good as his technique is, and that's actually something that kind of concerns me. And as good as his drive and want to is, and that's part of why his technique is so good, is because he worked it so much. He's just small in the upper body, and when they went against better competition, and he blocked in line, like, he lost control of defenders very consistently. Despite, again, he has a huge lower body, which is where a lot of his weight comes from. But, like, he just doesn't have the upper body to control a lot of these bigger guys.
Hilarious to call him small in the upper body. And I also love that we have perplexed Dan as our paused face right now, because this guy's jacked. Like, that's just so perfect. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's like a reverse Johnny Bravo, kind of. Just in the fact that his quads are massive. His quads and hamstrings are huge. And so that gives him a lot of drive, and he has a lot of leverage, but he just can't control guys. And so he loses a lot up top. He loses strength there, and he's 241. He came in at 241 at the combine. I think he plays around there between there and 245, but this is kind of one where even if he is 245, the weight lies a little bit just because of the upper body and how thin he is up there. Even though he is like shredded, but he's thin, and he's lean. And, I think that's going to be a huge issue as far as actually doing enough against these NFL DNs to play in line full time. And that needs to be your job. And if he's going to play the F full time, I have other concerns because he's very linear. So, like, he's got a obviously insane speed, right? Like, he's ridiculously fast. He ran a 4.39, and that didn't surprise me. But he's got issues decelerating. He's not a super precise route runner, and I don't think that he can do some things flexed out, but I don't think he can do enough to really full time in that slot role and command any volume. And I think he's very linear. So he's got the receiving skill set of a high-end wide tight end, but I don't think he can play there. So he's kind of like, I called him once on Twitter, I called him Ozempic Tucker Kraft, because he's got elite speed. He's got really quick feet in the short area and can make you miss, and is a great yak guy as a result. But when it comes to running these complex routes, you go watch him and then you go watch Loveland at Michigan. It's just different level of hip flexibility and precision and ability to decelerate. And if you don't have that in that flex role, you're just cutting off the menu from the F position so much that when you want to get into 3 receivers, you're going to get a slot receiver out there. And so you create that limitation because you're not Bowers, you're not Kelsey. Even if he's good, and look, he'll play on third downs. I think if he goes to the right offense, he'll be able to create a lot as a move guy in the off the run game, like a Harold Fannin. But your run game, if you're going to do that for a significant snap share, you better be able to live down to down on your run game. And there are not many teams that can do that. So he's kind of like Johnny Smith in a lot of ways. I think Johnny Smith has a little bit more wiggle, but he has way more juice, at least straight line.
I've been trying to come up with a comparison as to how he moves, and I'm struggling. Do you have anyone?
Yeah, it's Tucker Kraft. It's Tucker Kraft. He's just thin.
Okay. Small Tucker Kraft. Okay. That's it. That's good. Okay. So who is your tight end 1, Max?
It's Eli Raridon from Notre Dame.
Wow.
Nice.
I'm worried about the medicals there because he had 2 ACL injuries. Not to totally undermine my Eric All point, although 4 is a lot. 4 is insane. But he's been clean for 2 years. 2 years knee injury free, which is good. He's got an elite frame. I think he's actually a little underweight from what he actually plays at. I suspect, I have no knowledge of this whatsoever, but I suspect that he slimmed down about 10 pounds going into this year to catch the ball in anticipation of being asked to catch the ball and run routes more. So I think he can easily handle 255, which at 6'6" is fantastic. Yeah. He's a better athlete than Kenyon Sadiq. He has a higher relative athletic score than Sadiq. I don't think Sadiq did agilities. I don't think anybody did except for Sam Roush. But he's a better athlete than Kenyon Sadiq. So I just kind of don't understand what the case is here. He's honestly he wasn't more productive, but given the role and given how hostile Mike Denbrock's offense is to pure tight end production, it's not hostile to tight end development at all. It's the opposite. But there's no dressed up run action stuff. There's a little bit in the RPO game to the tight ends, but there's none of we're going to pop you behind the linebackers for free 25 yards that tight ends live on. So it's all drop back pass production, all legit stuff, even if he is at the Y working on linebackers and safeties. The inline blocking for a guy who I think is playing underweight, fantastic. He went toe to toe with Ruben Bain, and they ran right behind him. They ran behind him so often. He was, I'm really excited to chart him and really show what the data shows on this, because I've seen, I've done it. I've seen it. It's really, really good. The agility is there. The precision and fluidity as a route runner. I think he can be like I said, he can be a drop back threat. I think he can get open on safeties, on digs and corners and underneath stuff. Beat you on a deep over. He can win at the catch point. I think he can flex out in an F role a little bit when you get into 2 tight end, but that's a second Y that can kind of do that. And he can obviously, I think, play all 3 down. So if you get him up to 255, he really just develops properly. This can be a serious guy. And I think he's the only guy with the upside to be a high-level productive receiver, a serious threat in the drop-back pass game and play-action game, and be a not just serviceable in line, but a plus.
Love this. We're talking about Eli Raridon. I have actually watched his film. I said that Sadiq was the only one that I have watched, but that's not true. I watched Notre Dame, and he definitely shows up where I'm like, who's this huge guy? He looks like an NFL tight end, and he's winning on routes. I noticed him drop a lot of balls. Just let him go through his hands, and I don't know. I watched like 8 or.
Oh yeah, I honestly don't care about drops at all. I don't really think drops are real.
I don't want to overreact to that. Like if he has the framework to be a big athletic tight end who can stay on the field and block all the time, that's really important to know, especially when he comes in as like tight end 8 or so in consensus.
That's insane. That's nuts. I mean, but did they not watch the combine? Like he's more athletic.
Okay, let's talk about Eli Stowers. That's really good stuff. Stowers, for people who don't know, another insane athlete, also was very, very productive, but is like 240, sub 240. How do you even like make sense of this guy as he transitions to the NFL? I haven't watched his tape yet. Is he someone who can be like Gadsden and maybe flex, or is it just like no shot? He's got to win in the slot.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to win in the slot, and he's not going. He doesn't like. Again, it's I always say like, oh, he's got to win in the slot, and he doesn't have it, as if that's like a major criticism. But like, that's not the criticism. The fact that you can't play in line is the criticism. You not being able to full time as a slot receiver isn't totally understandable, because that's not your job as a tight end, and it's not necessarily expected. Like the guys like the Brock Bowers, the Travis Kelce, Trey McBride can play in line serviceably, so he doesn't have to do this. He doesn't have to pass this test, but he can do it. If you made him your full-time slot receiver, he'd be really, really good. No, like you go watch his.
Do you think he'd be a good enough receiver then? Like, do you think he can be better than Kincaid?
No. Kincaid's way better.
Okay.
And I certainly don't think he can be better than Jawan Jennings or Drake London or any of those guys that are doing the same thing. Especially since like you can just teach you can get a good power slot, like a slow X body that has legitimate precision and short area quickness but lacks X speed. Make him a power slot, teach him to get in the way, and you have a better Eli Stowers right there. Because like they did not use him to block at Vanderbilt, like at all. Like he was a walking run pass tell on a team that was in theory built around the run. So like, I mean, it's pretty like he blocks. He's like Mike Gesicki in that he doesn't just block similarly to a power slot. He blocks less. So like,
Sheesh.
I mean, I think he should change positions. I think he should lose 20 pounds and try to actually be a slot receiver. Because the athleticism I think is there. I think he's just heavy.
Yeah. Anybody else tight end that you want to highlight from this class?
I wanted to ask you about Delp. The kid from Georgia.
I mean, Delp, he's a little smaller than he needs to be for his type. But I think if he can get he's the same size as Charlie Warner, so that may not kill him. If he can develop, I think, technique a little bit as a blocker, which a little concerning because of how long he's been in school, but it's weird like that. Yeah. If he can be a legit inline guy, like I actually think he could be really, really nice because he's super athletic.
We're talking about Oscar Delp right now, who I'm finding outside of the top 10 tight ends from this class for anyone who has no idea what's going on.
No, I like Oscar Delp to be potentially.
Yeah, whatever list that is lucky they didn't let him test at the combine because he broke his foot and he didn't know about it.
He's this year's Gunnar Helm.
He is this.
Yeah, except he's more athletic. Like he's
definitely more.
I think he would have pushed the high 4.5s potentially. Like he's a freak show.
Noted.
And he also
skills-wise, when I watch him, I'm more excited about him than almost anyone in this class.
He's wide open all the time. Yeah. Wide open all the time. It's not his fault.
No,
they just don't let him fall.
Playing with Gunnar Stockton is nobody's fault.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, forget it. I like him a lot. I like Daquan Wright from Ole Miss. I need to see when he tests at his pro day, hopefully, because I'm a little annoyed he did. Well, not annoyed because. Oh my! But I wish he had tested at the combine. I wanted to see that, and know that Sam Rouch, Tyrannosaurus Rex, 30-inch arms at 6'5" or 6'6", 267. And you watch him as a blocker in college. He's blowing guys up, like he's standing guys up like blocking sleds. It's crazy. Struggles a little bit with control, and that makes me concerned about, because if he even had 31-inch arms, if he even had regular bad arm length, I'd be like, no doubt, with how freakishly he tested, one of the most athletic tight ends in the history of the combine relative to size, and how strong he is and how good his blocking technique is and his pass protection, I'd be like, this is tight end one. But man, we'll see with the protection. I still am going to be high on him. Love those guys. Yeah, it's an interesting class. A lot of these guys just coalesce around that area.
Okay. Anybody else for you, Dan? There are a lot of interesting names for sure. A bunch of really good testing tight end profiles. Did you have anybody you wanted to ask Max about specifically, or should we just wait and let it all roll out on reception perception?
We're gonna let it roll in with the reception. I'm still not near. I'm 1 to 5% of where I want to be on tight ends in this class. It's so hard to work through positions. I'll get there. We still have 6 weeks to go. But Delp was just the one that stood out to me that I wanted to definitely get his take on.
I'm glad you did. I made that note. I had no idea who Delp was. All right.
Now we're learning.
Good stuff. Perfect. Max, unless you have anything else on the rookie tight ends, we've arrived at the portion of the show where I get to give you crazy takes and you give me a 1 to 10 rating on how right they are.
Oh, I love this.
No, I'm ready for it.
You'll be evaluated on the numbers you use in this exercise.
Okay. So we've already kind of hinted at this one, but my take is, and this is from, I think, 2025, this past summer I made this, a healthy Tucker Kraft is this generation's Rob Gronkowski. This is our Gronk.
Sorry, wait. Sorry, I lost you for a second just when you said the name.
Tucker
like it.
Tucker Kraft is our generation's Gronk. This is as close as we're getting. This is our Gronk.
Don't be nice about this.
Well, hold on. As far as close as we're getting, I hope not.
What?
But I love Tucker Kraft. He's an elite player, but we're probably there's a chance we just straight up never see Gronk again.
I don't understand this. I'm not sold. I understand this one, Jacob.
Okay.
Well, our generation, everything kind of sucks for our generation, so that would kind of hold up.
Right? That's the joke.
Tucker Kraft doesn't suck, but in that sense,
you're never going to get a Gronk.
Yes,
I see where Jacob's going with this.
I'm saying who's the equivalent of a Gronk relative to what we have, and it's Tucker Kraft. And I said that before the year, and everybody was like, "You're so stupid and ridiculous and hyperbolic."
Yeah, but they just ignored the relative to what we have.
And then he came out and ate. He was going nuts and doing stuff that really only a few guys like Gronk and Kittle do in terms of the touchdowns and the long plays, the explosives, and being an impact blocker. I mean,
the blocking's fantastic. The blocking's
not to the Gronk level.
It's not Gronk.
The blocking may be as fantastic as the blocking may be. It's not the Gronk frame.
That's not what I'm saying, though.
But that matters for the blocking.
But Jacob's whole point is that our society is in decline, and the things that we get are worse, which is true. And as much as I love Tucker Kraft, he's not Gronk. But is he going to be the best true two-way guy that we have? Assuming Kittle is not part of our generation, in which case then it's Kittle, obviously. But it's that's not even close. If we're including Kittle, but
I see where we're going now. Okay,
I guess. I don't really. I thought if Tyler Warren had longer arms and were 5% better of an athlete, maybe. But
this can't be it.
They're moving all these guys to edge now, man.
That is true, though. We're not
or tackle. The guys with the real size are going to tackle.
Yeah. Okay.
1 to 10. What's our rating, Max? How crazy am I?
Given the parameters we laid out, I would say like a 5. It's not that crazy, but parameters are important.
Nope. On this show, you use decimals, so you can go 5-1, 5.
Oh, okay.
Terrible.
All right, fine. Let's go with 5-5.
Okay.
Love it. Okay, that's a win. That's a win for me. Okay, next one. Colson Loveland and Tucker Kraft both have a higher ceiling as real life players and fantasy players than Trey McBride, long term.
No way. Trey McBride's insane.
I know he's insane. I'm just obsessed with these two.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I just feel like they both can be better blockers, and Tucker Kraft gives you more big play upside. He's not nearly as good of a separator as McBride, and I understand that. But I do think he can be similarly effective as a receiver overall, and he's a better blocker potentially, in the long term, a much better blocker. And then Loveland, I think, can be a similar receiver and a better blocker.
Yeah, but I think that McBride's good enough as a blocker that and frankly, as a receiver, that it's not going to impact role. And once you've cleared that bar, it's not as, it's not as, it's certainly not as far as like saying they have much higher upside. McBride, if Kittle, honestly, like from a pure receiver perspective, besides Bowers, McBride's the guy right now. Like he's insanely good.
Yeah. No, I didn't say, to be fair.
Now that he's liberated from Kyler Murray too, like instead of having to just catch like 10 million dump offs into the flat and
to be clear,
make something out of him.
To be clear, we've always been ahead of McBride. We've always said Kyler was the villain. We've always said McBride was about to be the best tight end of all time and everything. What I'm saying right now, and I didn't say it was a much higher ceiling. I just do think they have a slightly higher ceiling. I think if McBride's ceiling on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of like real life impact and fantasy, he's probably like a 9 in real life and like a 9.5 for fantasy. And I think Loveland and Kraft are like basically both 9.5 in both real life and fantasy.
No, I think McBride's like a 10.
All right. So what's my
rating? Well, not if Gronk and Kittle and those guys are like break the scale 11. McBride. If Kittle isn't the same, McBride's the best guy.
Okay, so I'm just off my rocker on this one. I get a 1.
Yeah, I think a little. Yeah, I mean that's a little insane.
The Colson love has gone too far. That's fair.
No, not for me. No, not for me. I honestly, look, I don't. No one's gonna be. I'm just having so much trouble with this Gronk thing from watching my.
I know it sucks. It sucks. How do you think I feel? Gronk. That's why once Kittle went down, I had to write like this 5,000 page eulogy about how everything sucks now.
But I don't even think I from a blocking standpoint, yes, I agree with you on the Kittle Gronk thing. But I don't even think Kittle is a good example of what Gronk was. Nobody is. Gronk was winning vertically up the seam at levels.
So is Kittle, though.
So is Kittle, but not to the extent like where Belichick was, and not Belichick, McDaniels was like shaping an offense around the ability to get him vertically. And then they would like flex him out as the lone one in a 3-by-1 set, and he's winning on like in breaking routes. Gronk, like that's like,
so is Kittle.
I think Loveland has a better chance of being this generation's Gronk than Tucker Kraft. I'm just going to put that out there, despite Loveland not being the blocker yet, just because his frame is 6'6". Like if you're not at that 6'7" Gronk frame, like I don't believe in it the same way, because that length is everything on the line of scrimmage.
No, it is, but like Loveland is also kind of he's big, but he's naturally like a touch thinner than you would like him to be if he's good. And that's good. That's pretty depth. Like he'll never be Gronk. Kittle's almost, they're stylistically a little different. Just because Kittle is so much more of a yak guy, and he's a little bit much less of a ball winner than Gronk. But like Kittle's the closest thing. Nobody's Gronk. Like Gronk is, in the same sense that there are other positions that are really close. Nobody's really that close. It's like Wayne Gretzky in hockey is what Gronk is, where you can't really even seriously argue against it. So we'll never have that again, but like Kittle's the closest because he does all the stuff.
Okay, so I got a 5.5 and a 1 point something to satiate Dan.
I'll give. I mean, we're underrating Trey McBride here.
Okay,
1.0. So it's a 1.5.
1.5. Okay.
Half of Jacob's job is just satiating Dan.
Not a great start, but I mean, when you're going crazy with the takes here, you can't really expect too much. I think you might like this next one though. This feels like your type of a player. Brenton Strange has a long and productive career ahead of him, health permitting. I think he will probably be more likely to be a valuable fantasy player in 2027 and beyond than Gadsden, Kincaid, and Isaiah Likely.
Yeah,
he's
that's
way behind those players in dynasty.
No, you're right.
Value. Okay, just full send.
I think there are going to be years. There are going to be years in which he catches the ball less than those guys, just because of the nature of their roles when things line up for them. But I think he's going to be way more consistent. He's a better player for sure. If he can stay healthy, like he's really good.
He's really good, and he's freaking big and strong. Like I don't know if people realize how big and strong and athletic this guy is, and he's actually a decent receiver. Like the Jacksonville, I need to look up the splits on this. I felt like Jacksonville's offense like fell apart when he got hurt. And then when he came back, it was like, oh yeah, we are really good again. Like he's a really important player, and just nobody really cares for Dynasty, even though he's young and like a 2nd round pick and he's big and athletic. Like he kind of reminds me of like Pat Freiermuth, where no one cared about him for Dynasty, even though he's really young, had a really good receiving profile. He was really athletic and he was big, but he's actually a dog and he actually blocks.
Yeah, he's like if Pat Freiermuth wanted to play his position.
Okay, so that's like what's the rating on that? We're just like 10.
Oh
easy?
no, that's 10. No, because like, what if like Gadsden? No, that's 10. No, you're right. Yeah,
Let's go. That's huge. That gets me back on the board. Okay, this next one. Jake Tonjes and Charlie Kolar should be on deep dynasty rosters. So basically, we're saying they're right there with Mitchell Evans. I think these are actually two pretty good players. We've talked about the Chargers might use multiple tight ends more. I thought Tonjes really was incredible this year when he got in there for San Francisco. Do you have any thoughts on those two players?
Yeah, it's probably right. I mean, like, I would say below Mitchell Evans, just because I think Mitchell Evans has the potential to be that consistent 500 to 600 yard guy, with some touchdowns in there. But yeah, I mean, they're solid. Like Kolar's a total not upside, but like for a little bit of a projection relative to what he did in college, because he was super productive as a receiver in college and is now this road grading blocker. So if in theory you can put 1/4 of that receiving, ability together in the NFL, and you give him like as many snaps as he gets and as much involvement in the run game, as many easy opportunities that creates, there could be something there. It's just we haven't seen it yet. And I somewhat understand why, given the Ravens, but like it's a little weird because he's been in the league for a while.
Do you think that he could be a prop for Gadsden, or they just coexist? Like, do you think that he could just become the primary tight end? Like, not
from a snap perspective, yeah. I don't think from a target perspective.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially because of the third down stuff.
Tonjes, it shocked me to see him at the very top of PFF's run blocking. Do you think that's about assignment, or do you think that's
totally fake? Yeah, that's totally fake. He was terrible.
Okay. I was really surprised to see that. I liked his work as a receiver, so I wanted to get your take on him. Okay. So feeling good about Kolar. Tonjes, maybe not so much.
I don't know. I mean, like he'll stick around. He'll every once in a while have a year where things line up and he puts up some yards, but he's reliably now.
Yeah. Okay. Next take. Theo Johnson will rise again.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome. He's really good.
Okay, good.
He's really good. No questions about that at all.
Yeah, me and Dan were talking about this, and I'm like, I think people are just gonna like give up on him and just drop him, just treat him like he's Ben Sinnott, and like it's such a clear and easy skill set framework here, like that can work. Like all he has to do is catch the ball.
Go watch that first Eagles game. Like the tape's legitimately really good. Like he can run routes. They flex him out. He's 6'6", 260, 265.
Yeah.
He'll play every down. He'll get all those Y matchups and run game stuff. Like he's really good. The Giants offense needs to become a good unit for him to get the ball. But that's not his fault. Like if they were able to produce yardage as a team, he would have gotten a lot of it. And I think that he's closer to a top 10 tight end in the league than he is to Ben Sinnott.
Hell yeah. Okay. Darnell Washington, this is my last one. Darnell Washington is not just an Arthur Smith gimmick. He probably is. I just want this one to be true. Do you think that he could actually be more as a receiver? He was a really interesting prospect coming in. And he's like slowly worked himself into a bigger and bigger role. We saw him make some plays last year. His receiving stats are actually decent on a per opportunity basis. Any thoughts on Washington?
I mean, I've always been really confused why they didn't just keep him at like 265, 270, and try to use him as like a pure linear receiver. Just the guy, again, like as that guy who's a huge inline blocker. You pop behind the linebackers every once in a while, as a run action element. But he's what he say? He was like 3'11" or something on St. Brown's podcast, I think.
Yeah.
So that has always confused me. Because I understand, look, you want him as a pure blocker, but like he's too athletic. His combine was elite, and there were times at Georgia where he showed some legitimate smoothness, at least as a pure linear route runner. And again, you don't want him doing much, right? Like you want him popping behind linebackers on an over or a pop or slide into the flat or something like that. Just where he's able to stretch you enough with pure linear smoothness. But you get him at this weight, you just really can't move. So I don't think the production's real if they keep him at this weight. I'm curious to see what Mike McCarthy will do with him. I think that's a horrible fit for him from a production standpoint, just because of how much the Arthur Smith off, and I guess Aaron Rodgers was in theory too, because Aaron Rodgers runs so much of the Mike McCarthy offense. So I guess it's maybe not as big of an issue as I thought, but like you really want that guy down to like 270 and in a run action offense, sort of like Titans Arthur Smith, if he's really gonna do anything. But it's just I don't know. I mean, I think they're just gonna keep him at 300 pounds and have him just destroy people as an extra O lineman.
Yeah, so we're feeling better about like Kolar as a bet for this year, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would say so.
Okay. Great stuff, Max. Anything else that you want to tell people about tight ends at all before we get into just sharing your awesome work and what we've got coming up the rest of this offseason?
No, I mean,
we got on like 50 guys today. So
yeah, we definitely got to a lot. So I'm not really worried about what we did and did not get to because I think we were pretty thorough. Yeah, nothing I can really think of.
Good stuff. Okay, let me point you guys to a few things here. Do you want to handle this, Plug God? You want to tell the people how to support the channel and everything?
It's going to be you today because I'm drafting at the same time in Jamie's mock right now. I'm trying to figure that out. So you're on Plug God.
Classic Beyond the Box Score going so long that Dan has run into his post podcast obligations. Check us out here. Fantasy Football Today, Beyond the Box Score. We are pushing for 1,000 subscribers on our newly founded channel here, supported by CBS Sports. We've got all kinds of awesome content coming your way. We've got our live podcasts that go for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours or whatever. We've got some shorter form videos here that are 10 to 20 minutes that we're pumping out as well. We've been covering the free agents that have been signed, the impacts of some of these signings. We're going to do draft content as well, so you can go if you want to the playlists tab here and find specifically what you're interested in. We're going to have that all laid out for you there. We're also going to have lots of fun posts on here to have, like which of these frozen Dan stills is your favorite, all that good stuff to kind of build out the community. So please do subscribe. Please remember to like the video, leave us a comment if you think that we're crazy. If you think that actually Darnell Washington is a better dynasty roster piece than Charlie Kolar, I want to argue with you. So meet me in the comment section. Check out Reception Perception as well. Do you have is the tight end stuff on Reception Perception yet, Max?
Not yet. Not yet.
Coming.
We're still cooking that up.
Regardless, you got to check out Reception Perception. It's awesome. Shout out to our boy Matt Harmon, of course. This fantastic work over there, telling you who is good before they're good. So all the wide receiver stuff, they've got quarterback and running back as well. And then Max is going to be a great addition with the tight end charting, the tight end data. Lots of really cool stuff coming over there. And then Max, what else can the people know about how to find your awesome work?
Yeah, I mean, as I always say, everything goes through my Twitter. So if I do it, it's going to end up there for sure. It's kind of a good hub to find everything that I do. You can subscribe to Remember the Tight Ends on Substack. We're going to get some draft stuff up soon. I'm really also excited to get into the off-season stuff and talk about all this big theoretical stuff in more detail with more visuals that I will have access to in a written medium. I do some work for Bengals Talk on SI as well. That's certainly an interesting draft season. And if you're a Bengals fan, I do a lot of talking about them as well, doing a lot of writing about them. Definitely excited to get into more theoretical stuff this offseason with them because I think there's a lot to talk about there, on both sides of the ball and certainly with what they're doing on offense, which I think is potentially really going to put itself together in a major way next year. So I think that's exciting. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of what I do. I'm also contributing to the Badlands draft guide for the Jets. Nice. Trying not to fill every field with what's the point? You're just going to ruin this guy anyway. But I'll do my best to be fair. And yeah, that's really what I'm up to now and going forward.
Check him out, Max Toscano 1 at Max Toscano 1 on Twitter. Man, it feels bad that Max is so optimistic about the Bengals, and still I can't even get close to a green line.
Hold on. I talked about the offense.
On the Bengals offense, and Eric All Jr. gets 3 pauses before he eventually lets me down easy. So if you are in on Eric All Jr. with me, you might want to find a backup plan. I think we gave you plenty of options today. Max, thank you so much for being here. Dan, our producers, thank you so much for everything. Thank you to everybody in the live chat for showing up, and we will see you on Thursday.